Good evening, 6 p.m. I call the meeting to order. First of all, I want to note that Gabby is absent and excused. I believe she's not able to make any meeting. Begin with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically the Nooksack tribe, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. On behalf of everyone here, we want to express our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors, the Nooksack tribe, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways.
We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes to this agenda as written? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion to approve agenda as written. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next up is public comments, and we have two signed up. When we'll begin with Natalie. Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Good evening. Thank you for listening to public comments today. Yesterday, I attended the Washington State Board of Health meeting. At the meeting, it was mentioned that there will be mobile vaccine clinics coming to our communities and schools, and they're working on school and childcare vaccine initiatives and working on increasing vaccine uptake in rural communities, and will have school-based vaccine clinics coming to us very soon. The Department of Health is working on the final draft of their immunization roadmap, which should be coming out sometime in September. The purpose of the immunization roadmap is to increase the vaccination rates in Washington state. So what can we do to prepare ourselves for this onslaught of vaccine propaganda? We can educate ourselves, become critical thinkers, and ask critical questions. This school district will be targeted, so be prepared. The district is in a rural area and has a school-based health clinic, SBHC. The slogan, "No shots, no school," is not true. Vaccine exemptions are available, although the Department of Health does not promote them, nor want parents to know about them. Please give parents informed consent and include vaccine exemption paperwork and links in their back-to-school paperwork packets this year. Also, parents need to take a very close look at any blanket medical consent forms before signing anything, so that they do not unknowingly authorize medical consultations, vaccinations, diagnoses, or other treatment without their knowledge and consent, especially since this district has a school-based health clinic, SBHC. Personally, if I had a child or teenager these days, I absolutely would not sign any school medical or health consent form, not even to consent for a Band-Aid or a baby aspirin. I would want to be informed if my child or teenager needed a Band-Aid. And I'm not kidding when I say that. You have no idea some of the SBHC lawsuits that I've reviewed. And actually, I wouldn't even have my child or teenager attend a school with a school-based health clinic. It just wouldn't happen. There are numerous books about vaccines on the market, and I highly encourage parents to read two books, which were both written by attorneys that probably know more about vaccines than any doctor in Whatcom County. The first book is called The Vaccine Decision: Every Shot Has a Story, by Valerie Farrell and Leah Wilson. Both are attorneys. And the second book is called Vaccines, Amen: The Religion of Vaccines, by attorney Aaron Siri, who is one of my heroes. Aaron Siri is the managing partner of Siri and Glimstad LLP, a law firm with over 100 professionals and 15 locations nationwide. Aaron has extensive experience and has taken on and won a number of high-profile cases. It's because of him that we, the public, now have access to Pfizer and Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine clinical trial documents that the FDA fought hard in court to keep concealed and to not have released until 75 years from now. Which makes sense because the content and data in those documents is absolutely horrifying. That being said, in case there are any COVID vaccine injured individuals in attendance this evening, you can find resources and support at the website react19.org. That's REACT19.org. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And next up, Joseph. Thank you for coming.
Thank you guys so much for having me. So what I wanted to talk about is more of like, I would say a warning for the upcoming school year. So during my time as a Running Start student trying to do my chemistry and English 201 class, a lot of it requires me to have easily available internet access and the ability to search up things that I need for those classes. Recently, we had a documentary we were supposed to look up called, I believe, Mindfulness or something else. But we were not able to access it because I'm not sure if this is a thing that's related to like the phone policy or the internet policy or anything that's going on now. But a lot of the stuff keeps getting blocked before you're searching it. I know someone who was trying to search up something about chicken in relation to consumerism, and they searched up chicken breast and that got taken down because it was somehow Reddit. I searched up what rockets do fuel, what fuel does rockets use? And that was blocked as or a question. And so I just see this as being a really major problem for the upcoming school year, as that's going to get a lot of teachers upset because they need their students to be able to search up questions. That's also gonna make a lot of students upset. So it's more of a thing where it's like, it's impacting my ability to actually be able to like be a functioning member of my class and being able to like do the work. And so that's just one thing I kind of wanted to bring up to the board. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you would like, you can follow up with Superintendent Shake and get a better feeling for the details of your concern. But thank you for addressing. That's all for public comments. Next is regular reports, policy to practice, Baker Policy 3241, student disciplines.
Yeah. So we're trying out a new agenda format tonight, and we're gonna, at the end, and we talk about how it went, appreciate some feedback. We can still make some tweaks. So with this being a board workshop, one of the things I'd like to put in as a regular agenda item for our workshops is policy to practice. And so each month we'll have a different policy that we'll dive into in a little bit more detail and talk about how we're doing with it and things that we're gonna think are going well and things that we might improve. Another regular, I'm just gonna mention this now, another regular report will be the data dashboard. And I was planning to present something on that tonight, but the last 2 days I've been in administrative meetings with all of our principals and it's not quite ready yet. But I still wanted to list it here because that'll be something that whether it's going to be attendance, behavior, or student achievement, we'll just have some little snapshot for the board to look at each month. So with that, I will have you take a look at our policy to practice for this month, which is student discipline, policy and procedure 3241. And this policy, and I think it's important to mention that like the numbering of policies and the types of policies that have almost every board in every school district in Washington State has a policy 3241 related to student discipline. And so a lot of what you're going to see here is based on model language that comes from WASDA and comes from our state law, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But you can see that the policy has specific designs around positive school climate, maximizing instructional time, helping students be successful in meeting expectations, also being fair and equitable and culturally responsive when it comes to discipline. And then kids are going to make mistakes, and the purpose of having a discipline policy is also helping them learn from those mistakes. So making sure that we have a plan for helping students come back. At the same time, and we've talked about it quite a bit this year, that the board expects there to be a safe environment for all students and employees. We also need to make sure that we're communicating and involving our parents and our families. And that when students are excluded from school, we still have a responsibility to make sure that they're getting their education. Just because they're not in class doesn't mean that we stop having an obligation to them. And so with that, this is an overview of just where discipline starts and ends in Washington State and who sets the rules. It starts with our Washington State legislature that develops laws that then OSPI, the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, then takes those requirements and gives school districts different guidance and due process information that we need to follow. All of that is funneled into the policies that school boards take a look at and have the ability to make tweaks and changes that meet the local context, so long as it doesn't change the requirements of the law. And then once the board passes a policy, then it's up to the superintendent and district staff to figure out how to implement that through procedure. And then school staff puts that into practice. So policy 3241 has already been passed by the board. I believe we updated it last year. It's interesting that the state has, for the last few years, been making some continual changes to how we address discipline. And so we have to update the policies and update the procedures when those happen. So you can see some of the things that the district is directed to do with this policy. And this is a little bit of a repeat of what I shared before, but when we talk about these things, these are things we need to keep in mind. Okay, so we have a lot of guardrails on exclusionary discipline. And this is something that even today, when I was working with the principals, we were going over a lot of the discipline information as we're getting ready for the start of school. And this question of when can a student be excluded from school and when can they not is difficult and hard. And we're making sure that we're talking about it a lot so that we understand the laws to the best of our abilities. Excuse me. So you can see here 5. Yes, please. We've been talking a lot today. We need to make sure that before we exclude a student that we have considered other responses. And that's why we're not allowed, if a student does something short of bringing a gun to school, there's no, we have to try other things first before we just say you're automatically out. We also need to make sure that we are considering individual circumstances. One size does not fit all with discipline. There are very specific due process requirements in terms of informing and conferring with students and families. As I said previously, we need to keep education going. Thank you very much. And then return students as soon as reasonably possible. If we have emergency removed a student, we're allowed to do that for up to 10 days. That doesn't mean we automatically take the 10 days. We bring students back when we can. Are there any questions on this while I take a drink of water? No? Okay, well, we are aiming to have consistency. That does not mean that we are treating all students identically. And so this consistency means that we are defining behavior the same way. We are communicating expectations for how staff will respond. We're following legal and procedural requirements, and we've got good documentation and family communication. The individual side means that we do take time to look at the nature and circumstances of the behavior, students' individual circumstances. We can still be consistent even when, so maybe that would be an example of a 1-day suspension versus a 3-day suspension based on the different things we know about a student and where they've been. And then we also talk a lot about student protections and required processes on both sides, whether it's a student causing the behavioral infraction or students on the receiving end of whatever behaviors might be happening. Now, discipline law is complicated because there are all these other laws and requirements that can often intertwine in a single discipline incident. So you've got general discipline, one of the things we were talking about today with the principals, sometimes a discipline matrix will have an infraction being running down the hallway. Okay, that would be a general discipline situation, and we realize it's probably not, the issue isn't running down the hallway, the issue is safe behavior. And so having conversations about how we're defining that. HIB is harassment, intimidation, and bullying. We have a separate policy on that we will be reviewing this year as well. Sexual harassment is a policy that we talked about in April with policy to practice. There are processes for threats of violence. We also have laws regarding students with disabilities. One example of that is a student who has an IEP has a different number of days that they're allowed to be out of school compared to a student that does not have an IEP. And then, as I mentioned briefly before, firearms have very specific statutory requirements. Even if a student accidentally brings an actual firearm to school, we are required to expel that student. And there's a whole process that happens after that. Okay, so what should this look like in practice? We should have clear expectations, appropriate staff response, and consistent administrator response. And while we're doing those things, we're using individualized decision-making, documenting and communicating, and making sure that we're following through. Here's what I think is going pretty good. First of all, we have a really strong policy 3241 in place. It has the legal requirements, including family involvement, restorative practices, and documentation that we are, as we'll talk about in just a moment, continuing to refine and improve as we improve our systems. Where we need to make sure that we're working toward in a stronger way is common behavioral definitions, so that, you know, what's defined as safety at Harmony is this in the same realm as what's defined as safety at Acme and at all of our buildings. We are working toward a clear response. If something happens in a classroom with a classroom teacher, how is the administrator responding in a consistent way? Common discipline guidance across our schools, documentation and how we code. So disciplines have certain codes that get put into our Skyward system that get reported to the state. Administrator calibration and current law understanding, that happened just today as we were talking about how we're defining different things that students might do. And then as we're going to start doing more this year with our new data dashboard, routine review of district-wide discipline data. So here are a couple examples of that work. We have I did not print this for you because it is very much a draft and I want to give the administrators time to refine it a little bit more, but they are working on an administrator discipline guide. And in this guide are those shared definitions for student behavior, other common terminology, references to different legal requirements, connections to policy, and guidance about what to do and when. Like if this happens, then do this. And a lot of our conversations are, what does this mean if it's a harassment, intimidation, and bullying? What does this mean if it's a Title IX or sexual harassment piece? When we do our back to school event with all staff on August 24th, Kim Elms, who's our teaching and learning director and our Acme principal, she's going to be sharing a new website that we have for reporting. And it's just a really nice, it explains, like, if you don't know what to do, if you don't know what happened, is it HIB, is it sexual harassment, is it just a regular behavior thing? It walks you through it and helps you make reports. And the nice thing about it is that even like one of the first questions is, what is your role? So it's something that we're going to make available to parents and the public. So if you're one of those people, you can click that and it will take you through one process. If you're a student wanting to make a report, it'll take you through that reporting process. Staff members, administrators. So everybody's covered in one place. And by the end of the year, we'll have some really nice data to show how many reports have they been, what kind of categories have they been, which will be helpful for us to make decisions about how well we're doing.
Where do those reports go?
They're going, so that's one of the nice things that she created. Depending on the severity of the complaint, they're always automatically going to go to the building administrator. So they get an automatic email when something is submitted. If it, and there's different triggers that, if you check this box or that box, it'll automatically go to Kim as our Title IX coordinator and myself. So like, for example, every CPS report, I will get an email that will be generated from this website. So I'll have that and I can put that in a folder so I have it. And then we don't have to do extra copies or anything else. And then it'll also keep track of all of that within a spreadsheet so that a principal would be able to see. It's not just individual emails, it's for the entire year, an entire spreadsheet of everything that came through for the building. Okay, the other thing that we're working on is a discipline matrix for K-6 and a discipline matrix for 7-12. And I did make copies of that. So this is for each of you that you have in front of you. It's a more colorful document there. These are very much in draft form. And this was, again, part of the work that we were doing today. But I think this is a major step forward for the district where maybe individual buildings had a matrix or a tool that they were using. This is now going to be something that all elementary schools will use consistently, and both our secondary schools will also use consistently. A matrix is intended to be a guide, not dictate automatic consequences. The law says that we have to, we can't do that automatic piece. We have to think about things and consider the situation, but it does help principals be more consistent when circumstances are similar. So that is in the works, and these will be finalized before school starts. They will be communicated with parents. They will be in student handbooks, and we'll see how it goes.
Quick question.
Yes.
OSS, is that out of school suspension?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then the last strengthening of practice is the regular review of data. Policy 3241 requires that data is reviewed in different ways by whole, looking at the school as a whole, looking at different groups and grade levels, types of behavior violations, and then what discipline happens. And so by the end of this school year, with the systems that we're putting in place, these are the questions that I am confident we're going to be able to answer. Are similar behaviors being classified consistently? How frequently are we excluding students from school? Do patterns differ? Are there patterns between the different schools? Is there disproportionate outcomes for particular student groups? And are we becoming more consistent over time? So I'm really looking forward to being able to measure that and have meaningful conversations about that. And I should say we have been collecting data because it is required, but we're collecting it in a different way now so that we can use it.
On the previous slide, so collecting data and then comparing the patterns and things like that. Mm-hmm. Do you see sort of a condensed version that then would become a report to the school board? Mm-hmm.
The Panorama website that will be part of our regular dashboard presentation. That's where we're gonna be able to see that.
Yeah,
so yes,
as we get familiar with that, we can.
And on August
24th, how to read it. And
exactly.
how to use it.
And teachers need to learn how to use it to put in discipline reports. So on August 24th, after we do our welcome back session of that morning, one of the professional development sessions teachers are going to go to is one, learning how to log into Panorama. And then one of the first tools that they're going to learn is how to log discipline and what's there. So again, so that teachers can be consistent in that as well. So what we're currently doing is, today this is reviewing our policy and procedure against current laws. There are a few places, because those laws keep getting updated, that we do need to do a few procedural language changes, just really minor tweaks, but that'll be something that Tammy and I work on. It doesn't change the intent of the procedure, but it does just make sure we're more compliant with the law. As I mentioned just a moment ago, we're going to incorporate, based on what you give us information or feedback today, we're going to incorporate that. If we hear something from you today that you think we should be thinking about with our matrices or other things, we've got time to work that into the plan. We're going to finalize those matrices before the end of the school year, as well as that administrator student discipline guide. And then on the right-hand side there, you can see just what we're anticipating as our ongoing work throughout this year. And so I welcome any questions or comments that you might have, just and if these questions are helpful, I'm curious if the draft tools seem to strike the balance between district-wide consistency and individualized decision making. As we continue to talk about discipline, I would be interested in what kind of information would be most helpful to you as a board. Is it just the data? Is it information? Is it more anecdotal information about how discipline is being handled? And then as we are communicating with families and students about discipline, what are some ideas around what you think families need to know or understand based on maybe on the types of questions you get about discipline from your constituents?
So let's go ahead. You want to start, Ed?
Sure. So on the first question, I don't know that I can answer that, but I do appreciate the fact that you recognize that that's important and are aiming towards that. One question I had related to that is, are there misbehaviors that are in the gray area between, say, general discipline and HIB or sexual harassment?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, how does that get dealt with?
Mm-hmm. I think if there's ever a question like, is this HIB or is this not?
Mm-hmm.
We err on the side of reporting it to our HIB and Title IX coordinator. And so that's Kim Elms. And then it's her job to look at the evidence or information that we have and maybe conduct some interviews and make a determination if it is or not.
Right. For the second question, I know kind of expecting you'll be tracking different types of misbehaviors. But I do remember before you've mentioned how important positive reinforcement is for correcting behavior. So I'm just wondering if there is a way to measure maybe what the staff is doing for positive reinforcement, because I feel like that might even be more valuable than measuring misbehaviors in terms of helping move the students. Like I know at the junior high, there's like Baker Bucks, and I know the senior high, they're looking for students for their trimester awards that I think Lita got one before, right? So they are kind of looking at these students and, it's extra work, but there might be some value. That. On the third one, I guess the only one thing would be that we expect a safe and respectful environment. That's all I have.
Good.
So I like that it's going to be consistent across all buildings. I think that's really important. And having something like this that they everybody can look to and see, but then having a little bit of like flexibility in where it goes, because it's like up to 30 minutes and that kind of thing, doesn't require that. So I like that. I think the reporting website is really good too. Just in that being able to track it more. But with the reporting website, I'm wondering, will it kind of track like themes or like is the same student doing the same thing over and over again, and how are those working, and then where will the opportunity to try something different to come up?
Yeah.
Like if these aren't working, then what? So I'm just curious about that. And what information would be useful is just obviously, is it working? I mean, in the first year, we're just it's a gathering quest rather than a solution quest.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not expecting a lot, just want to know like, how's it going? And then what should students and families understand? I think it's going to be really important just to let everybody know that some things like this is just this, that I don't know that we've had this before. And I think that, you know, letting people know that it's not, you're not just singling students out. Right? There is actual like behavior, and I don't know, and this will be in student handbook, so they'll know, the students will know like what is and isn't appropriate. And I get what you're saying. I think that that's great too, but I would suspect that the kids that get the most good feedback are the ones that have always gotten the good feedback. So I don't know. I'm just curious how that would be instituted into it. But I like the thought of that for sure. Because we've been doing that, right? We've been doing bigger bucks and all that stuff for so long, and we don't have any data on that. So now this will be good, and maybe that can be correlated into that as well.
You want to wait till we're all, the rest of us, or would you?
I think this is a good idea, you know, it clearly outlines things, you know, you can't, it'll make it a whole lot easier for people to say, but you're giving me a punishment, but not that person a punishment. That's always kind of like a big thing that somebody will do. So I think it's a good thing to have it outlined, and it's gonna be in the student handbook. You can't really have the excuse of saying then, I don't know. Because you can know if you really want to, you can know if you really want to. So I think this is great.
Yeah, I like it. I think this is really great in a handbook. I think it's easier for parents to see what is going to happen. Then when it does happen, they can't really be shocked. It'd be like it was in the handbook. I like it's going to be the same at all schools. We've had that with a lot of things where there was a lot of different Acme, Kindle, Harmony going on, and being the same is easy to track. It's going to be great. We'll be able to see the progress when it's presented in data dashboard. I think that's one thing we haven't really seen a lot of it. So when we do school visits, they kind of touch on it at times. And one thing, I don't really know what the fix is for it, but we've seen it's the same kids. It might be 3 kids that draw that number really big. It's consistently the same. So try to figure out what we can do there. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be good.
I like the balance between the individualized decision-making and the consistency. I think the consistency part makes sure that we aren't missing things and that we're applying our approach somewhat evenly, or that there's an even trigger for a response. That makes sense. But that then there's room within that range of response to make a judgment call based on what you know about that student in that situation. And so it gives our building principals, for instance, the ability to make use of what they know about that student. Because the goal, in my mind, around discipline is both safety and support to get a student somewhere better than they might have been without that support. I like Ed's idea or comment about tracking both the disciplinary sort of infractions, but also tracking the things that we already do to show where students are being positive. And I like presenting those alongside each other because, you know, some of the feedback that I've gotten from constituents when we've shared info about discipline, say in board meetings or whatever, and then they're seeing it publicly, it raises a lot of worry and frustration from parents about things that they're hearing from their student in the classroom and how other kids' behavior is affecting or impacting their kids' education. And so to be able to just remind everybody that we've got great things going on too at the same time. I mean, I think that that's important to package those together. I mean, students are here to learn and grow, and they are going to make mistakes. And so some of those students, I mean, I know at Harmony, they give out different awards and whatever, and I go spend some reason what I hear from my my own students, some of those kids that are getting recognized do have disciplinary things going on at the same time. So it isn't all or nothing, that only the good kids are getting noticed. But it would be nice to know how much crossover is there, because that's where I think you could really start turning somebody's behavior, is to catch them doing good stuff too. I had a couple of questions that are a little related to what you asked. One was, you know, we were talking about updating procedure and policy based on changes to the law. I wonder if we have anyone tracking court or legal precedent that gets set when there's a lawsuit that then helps us see how the laws that are on the books are getting interpreted, so that then we know how to adjust, like, okay, they're reading it this way, so we might need to, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And to answer that, that's what WASDA does for us.
Yeah.
I figured,
Yeah.
Right.
but I wanted to ask that question out loud.
No, I think we have to pretty much lean on WASDA
To do that
Okay.
for us, yeah, because I mean, I think that's an important piece of then how we train our staff. And then follow-up question about the new online reporting structure. So someone sends a report, and it, depending on what they say, it goes to the appropriate administrators to check into. Let's say I'm a parent and I've submitted a report. Is there follow-up with me? Even if I'm reporting about not my own student, does somebody contact me, or does it just go into the void?
If parents, community members and students will have the opportunity to do an anonymous report, and if you do it anonymous, there will not be a follow-up.
Yeah, yeah,
If you do provide your name.
okay. I just wanted to close the loop on knowing how that process works. And hope that the form says that somewhere, like after you submit, so people know what to expect.
Yeah.
Because I have had experiences where you're reporting something and then you don't know where it went, and if anyone saw it, or if it's over now, and now what? So I'm glad to hear that you guys thought that part through. Those were my main questions. What I think students and families, especially families, need to understand about the approach to discipline are some of the things that you brought up. Like the legal constraints that the district is working within. You know, sometimes you'll have a situation where something happens with the student and families want them to be disciplined more or differently. And I think we just have to, as often and as frequently as we can, give people opportunity to understand the rules of the state that we're working within. Because it's different than even when I was in school, right? So people kind of think about that frame of reference. Well, when I was in
Even
school,
it was 5 years ago.
exactly, yeah. When I was in school, they would adjust, you know, and so helping people understand what those changes are, but then also why it's changed and what it is that we're trying to accomplish with it. Because there is a feeling among some of our constituents that schools are too soft on discipline. And so I think that's a messaging opportunity for us to help them understand why those laws have changed over the years, and to what degree it's working, and give people that up. So that's what I would say about that.
I had a couple of questions before getting into answering those, but we're discussing this on suspension. You know, I've seen can be seen as a vacation, and also can result in putting a student in a dangerous home situation. And so there's always that push-pull how you address that, and I think having that individual, the ability to make an individually appropriate thing. And so would you more tend to use an in-school suspension in those kind of circumstances, or how would
In
that
school is
fit in?
difficult because you need staff to supervise in school. and which we don't often have that ability. So I think that's why it's part of the reason why not only does the state ask us not to use it very much, but it's also not best practice for those very reasons. We want, our purpose is to teach kids.
Right.
And so long as we can do that in a way that students are not causing a danger or a distraction to others, we're going to keep them in school. And if we can use exclusions as a way to change behavior, we're going to use them. And if we can't, I mean, we're not going to reach every kid, but we're sure going to try.
On the matrix first page, level 2, eloping, automatic lunch attention. I always thought eloping meant going to Las Vegas and going to one of those Elvis preachers and getting married. So is that a different sense of eloping?
Yeah, so this is where it's funny because when eloping was not a word that, I mean, I've been in education for 25 years and it's not a word that I used regularly in my previous districts. We actually, if a student left campus and didn't come back, that's what that is. We always said, oh, we've got a runner. But I guess eloping is the more appropriate.
So
word.
they don't have to just get married then.
No, we also do not want them to get married.
That'd be level 6. So.
Yeah.
Parents should be notified if they're married. I mean, if they will. Anyway, so this, CPS, what triggers a CPS referral is something that we have training on. We're trying to make sure that we tighten up that and stuff. But I'm a little unclear in this, and I haven't studied the details, is what triggers contact with law enforcement as opposed to CPS?
So it's very similar. Like anytime we think that a student is in an abusive situation, has been attacked, has been the victim of any kind, the training that we're giving our staff is, if in doubt, call both. And the sheriff's department we've had some of their representatives here and they're like, yes, I mean, it's our job to take those calls. So if it doesn't rise to the level of something that we can do something about, we'll let you know. But don't make a mistake of not calling.
Because, I think looking backwards, assault was usually dealt with in-house.
Yeah.
But it's also a crime.
It is. And actually, for that reason, the matrices used to have the word assault in there. That is a legal term that, whether a physical interaction rises to the level of assault or not is something for police and prosecutors to determine. So we've replaced assault with attack. And at any point that we think that there has been that kind of physical altercation, we're going to contact law enforcement so they can come in with their expertise.
The district-wide consistency, individual decision-making, I think, having the student handbook, which would be available for parents, will be a very important tool there, and how we describe that, how we describe clarity, but also providing individual response will take some pretty good wording to get that across, because it's those are two seemingly contradictory things, but we need to be able to do them both. And so I think I will be interested in how you address that wording wise. Useful for the board, I think board data should point to the academic impacts. So whether we have absences included as part of the discipline data, or how we handle that, but that kind of attendance data folded into this. So different things that will impact academics should be broadly part of the board data. And then also we should be able to have the kind of data that we can get an indication of consistency between the elementary schools. So if you can figure out those key measures that will show, because whatever we measure, people will work on. And so you use that board data to help promote consistency. I like your idea of tracking positives. And then is the draft discipline matrix, this one, will that be available for parents?
Yes, it'll be in student handbooks that
Oh,
will
this
be,
will be in student, so this, it'll be pretty clear, you do this, yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah, I think this is it's a great step forward, and I think making things more clear will really help everyone. And a lot of it is your discussions with parents and working out some of the details of approaches. But and I still, getting back to my first question, I still what I have a question, what ability do we have to consider conditions outside our campus and our school activities in that discipline? Because for a lot of children, that's a big concern.
I mean, when something happens off campus.
Well, not just what happens, but a child's behavior oftentimes is a result of what happens off campus. There things going on in their life that then make them, we see it as misbehavior. They're just responding to what they're dealing with. And so I think that's a more complex part of it, but it's definitely part of the picture that we always have to be thinking, and to what extent can we include that in our.
I think that's where the positive behavior support systems come in, because if we are training, I mean, we have no control over the homes that our students are coming from. But what we can do is help students learn how to moderate themselves and control themselves and respond to things in more and more mature ways when they are here. And so that's where the positive systems come in.
We do have a little control in that we can make a CPS report if CPS does it.
True.
In cases where they do, we've accomplished them. Thank you. Yeah, this is really great work, and I think it will. The administrative discipline guide will help clear up those processes so that and I think, as we've seen, I think that'll help walk administrators through their job a lot better.
Yeah, they have a lot on their plate, and when
Right.
they've got 50 things coming at them and then a discipline situation in front of them, it's nice to have some tools so you're not having to do that extra load of thinking, okay, what next?
So are you on the regular reports, is data dashboard another thing, or is that the data dashboard for the discipline?
In a normal board workshop, it will be a separate, I'll have something to show you about the data dashboard. I just don't tonight,
Oh,
but I
okay,
just wanted
okay,
to.
yeah, you mentioned that, and
Yeah.
I didn't know if you had something else you
Yeah.
wanted to present to me. Okay, so then, anything else, so nothing else on the student discipline? We'll go on to the discussion items, and building on yesterday's government-to-government training, a debrief, strengthening tribal consultation. So did you want to address it first, or?
Well, I wanted to give the board the opportunity to talk about what you heard and what you thought, and any questions about where we're headed with our new consultation process.
Danielle, do you want to?
Sure. I took a few notes and just trying to decide what to lead with. I'll lead with what I've got first. I think one of the things, two things really stood out to me. Of all of the great information, there was a lot to take in. But two big ones stood out to me as a board member. One was the importance of how we collect data, and how a lot of our Native students, the way that census data or even just regular data collection, when it asks you to identify a race, category, or ethnicity, can end up hiding our Native students' status so that we don't have meaningful data. And some of the ways that this workshop talked about ameliorating that was really useful, and something that wasn't on my radar. I know that in a lot of districts, you're looking at that data and maybe the numbers are low, and so people will make arguments that the data isn't significant, so you don't have enough of a number to work with. But those additional considerations about how many students are actually hidden in the data that we get to see, I thought that was one really important thing to think about as a district and chew on, because you want truthful data, you want meaningful data. And then the second thing that really stood out to me was the importance of not just relying on individual relationships between a given superintendent or board member and tribal partners, but to codify that into policy and written procedure and practice so that it outlasts those individual relationships. Those are important to build, but to create systems that will outlive those individual relationships. And it just got me thinking about the importance of policy and what the board does there, and the importance of writing down procedure. And so those were two big standout things for me, among many.
There was a lot of information. It was really amazing, the different tribes, how there's a lot of different things. It was like they all had their own way they do things, and there's a lot of different ones. I look forward to moving forward, work with the Nooksack tribe and policy, and working on that bond that hasn't been very strong here. I think getting it strong will be beneficial for both, and I look forward to working with them on that. It was good, like you said, with the data, and choosing more than one race, it would really throw their data off for what they were trying to achieve. So that was an eye opener, and yeah, I just look forward to moving forward with Nooksack tribe and brushing up our policy and making a stronger bond with them.
So you
I wasn't here, so.
No, you weren't there. It was really great. That lady was so informative, and I was just like wrapped with what she was telling us, all of these stories and things, and lots of information to take into consideration. So, with like, not like holidays and things like that. So like, are we gonna be able to incorporate like someone from the tribe into our calendar committee and that kind of thing? And so I'm wondering, I guess I'm also kind of wondering, like, what is the tribal liaison's job going to be, and who's training for that? Like, where are they, what's that person going to do, and what does that look like? So I'm really curious about that. Yeah, and again, thinking about policy, and I like that, yes, building on something that can last forever beyond this. I don't think I'm gonna be on here as long as Russ is, so. We'll see.
continuity.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a great.
You can get yourself cloned, and like Dolly, every 10 years you get a new Dolly.
There you go. Yeah, is that just a one-time thing? Is this something that we have to do every year, that training, or?
That training, I believe you need it. So similar to, remember, there was those 3 required school board trainings that you need to do once per term.
Oh, gotcha.
per term.
Okay.
But what I'm wanting to do is collaborating with the tribe about how can we, as a board superintendent team, get together with their tribal council at least yearly. And
Yeah.
have some kind of joint meeting every year where we're coming together and just getting to know each other and knowing who we are and how we can support each other.
Yeah, everyone was really nice. It was nice to connect with, I mean, I've seen Anna around, but I've never really chatted with her, so that was really fun. It was a good night. Really cool.
Thought she was a fantastic presenter, like
Yeah.
good energy, you know, a lot of good sense of humor. And just it was great, yeah. And I can see why they picked her for that job. So I learned a lot, and it's just good to get to know someone and that culture in that way. Was we're building a relationship, you kind of understand the different aspects of what their thinking is about things. That'll help us as we continue to help build that relationship.
I think something that stands out to me with what I've learned about tribes is, yes, it's about culture and identity. And she emphasized it multiple times last night, but it's also about politics. It is their government, and like, you represent a governing board, they represent a governing board, and it would be, and I like that because it makes the work feel more important. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think politics, that was something that I thought of in the discussion was on my work with WASDA, serve on the committee evaluating trust land transfer proposals across the state. And one of the proposals that we're evaluating is a proposal to transfer 12,000 acres of basically sagebrush near Grand Coulee Dam to the Coulee Band of the Colville Nation, Colville Confederated Tribes. And it seems like, okay, that makes sense, but the Yakimas think it should be their land. And so it's kind of like listen first type of situation and let all this stuff, I can't quite solve everybody's problems, but we just have to, because that, looked at it with all things considered, I think it would be great for a band that has not had their own land since the 1850s to finally have their own reservation in what's otherwise just sagebrush that we're not using for anything. But it was very meaningful for them. So it was kind of that politics of it. I think we have to. It's a good reminder to me. I've read the treaties for the Western Washington tribes, and education, healthcare, and some other food stuff are mentioned as part of that exchange. So I think we always have to remind ourselves in the relationship with the tribe, it's different than with any other, whether it's ethnic group or culture or whatever, because yes, they are a culture or an ethnic group, but they're also a political entity that owned all this land and were forced to give it up in exchange for X, Y, and Z. And so we still have that responsibility on X, Y, and Z because that's what the treaty covers. And so that's always important to remind ourselves. Let's see, what on the since time immemorial curriculum, I think it'd be interesting for us at some point to have a follow-up with a work session to really look at, because I vaguely remember even really looking at that to approve it originally. I can't really tell you what's in it, and how I think that might be something that like if we did have a joint meeting with tribal council, that might be one of the agenda items that we could include, looking at it together. Here's what it is, just an idea.
Well,
I
and I
like,
want to point out that since time immemorial, curriculum is a big part of the memorandum of understanding that we're going to be taking a
Right.
quick look at today. And even the next week, we're going to do some training with teachers where we're doing different workshops. And we have 2 representatives from the tribe who are going to come and do a session specific to culturally responsive teaching and since time immemorial. So there's a lot of work to be done with that, but we're laying the groundwork for getting that started.
I got a kick out of the indigenous PE suggestion. Because we did have canoe polling, I think, a number of years ago here as a PE activity, so that looks like kids can get credit for training for canoe racing, the Stalmish and stuff, which is it's physical. And so it is PE, but it's also culturally important. So that it's that was a great thing. Special ed adaptation of curriculum. That one, I'm not sure how that fits in and how we integrate special ed instruction there, but that's a. And then I like the concept of including contemporary issues, particularly at the high school level. I think high school students really handle that well. I mean, it's something you live and breathe for, and so I just listening to some of them. It's like, having that in a kind of a sheltered situation here at school is a great thing. The Nooksack tribal holidays, that's something I figure we could ask as part of the memorandum of understanding, because I don't know what the answer would be there. And then the sustained relationship, whether you're one term or more terms, it's and I think your idea of meeting on a periodic basis does that, because then whoever's on the board, whoever's superintendent, there's enough overlap that the relationships sustain, because the same thing with the tribal leadership too. So, and then communicating this process, particularly our memorandum of understanding with Cascadia Daily, which I think you mentioned you intend to do, helps with getting that publicity across the community. I thought it was really positive meeting, and apparently we have 2 other sessions following up, and I wasn't quite sure if they were going to be in person or online or
2 sessions.
Well, there was mention of a training in October of this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think she was and correct me if I'm wrong, I think she meant the repeat of that exact same training for other board members.
Okay, because I got the impression that this was 2 hours out of 5 total.
I think it was the government to government training that superintendents.
Yeah, superintendents and principals have to take the government to government training.
So you think we're done?
You're done.
Can board members attend those trainings if they want, or is there cost associated?
There's
with
not
that?
a cost associated, so I think you.
Just if they're interested.
Yeah.
Anything else on the tribal consultation?
I would just say that I'm excited to see and learn more about what the time immemorial curriculum currently looks like, and working with the Nooksack tribe to help localize it. A lot of that curriculum, and I came to understand this from the presenter last night, might have been developed by tribes that have a lot of resources to hire instructional designers to build that curriculum, and then their story gets told. How much of the Nooksack story has been integrated in that standard curriculum? I'm betting not much. And so it's an opportunity for our whole community to learn about local history. And as someone that grew up in this area, I mean, I would have loved that as a student. I love history and just to learn more about the place where I have lived and worked and have grown up. I mean, I think that's something unique that our students can get from being here, to learn about that Nooksack history. And that benefits all of us. So I'm looking forward to that opportunity.
And I think just
Yeah.
meeting together, I also enjoyed a conversation with Anna George. Well, she's a different married name, but I remember when she was here in high school, and I could tell in high school both of those sisters could do something. They were really on the ball, and they have. And I enjoyed serving with Abby here on the board, and so having that. I think having those joint meetings often enough really feed the relationship that in ways that are necessary for us both to thrive. Next we have the Mount School District and Nooksack Tribe. It should be an MOU, isn't it?
Yeah, it is gonna be, an MOU.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, what, each of you has a copy of this. I didn't put it on board docs yet because it's still something that, I know that the tribal council is reviewing as well, but this is the most, updated draft that we have so far. And our plan is to do, a joint session with the tribal council on August 27th, which is the same date as our next regular board meeting. And so this document is something that Kim Elms and I have been working with a few different tribal representatives on since I think we started talking about it in April or May. And so Teresa Washington and Amy Starsdeck are the two education employees for the tribe that we've worked most closely with. But we've also had conversations with a couple different council members and Nick Lewis, who is their new general manager. So multiple conversations and emails back and forth about this. I won't go through the whole thing, but as you review it, a few things that I just want to point out. On page 5, it talks about the how we're going to be looking at staffing. Now, one of the reasons why we're in required consultation with the tribe is we're receiving over $40,000 in federal money for Title VI grant funding. So that's the trigger for kind of this a more formal process. And one of the things that through our initial consultation meetings that the tribe was really clear about is they want a dedicated tribal liaison position on district staff. And we've had staff in the past who have worked as a we've been calling it a liaison position. And while they've been doing really good work with their students, someone who's a liaison needs to liaise with the tribe. And so we have posted what we're calling a Native Student Success Coordinator that is a liaison position. And we have not hired this position yet. We're actually going to be reviewing applications next week. I believe it closes tomorrow. And that person, we're using the bulk of our federal dollars that we receive for that. And in order, the tribe really, really wants this position, and you'll see that they are contributing $15,000 a year for that position as well in order to make it a more appealing salary for whoever does take that. But that person will be working closely with district staff to look at student data, to coordinate with parents, to really be intentional about that data collection piece. How are we making sure that we're identifying all of the Native students that we have in our district? And so we have a job description that was posted with that, and it'll be, I think, a really good way for us to strengthen our relationship and strengthen our daily working experience with the tribe. That person will also be helping us think about our since time immemorial curriculum, and you'll see that Well, I'll get to that in just a moment. There's other pieces of this talks about how we share data. And there's a policy for your consideration tonight that will pave the way for everything in this MOU to like not have any hangups in terms of how we're sharing data. As you know, with FERPA, student data is really strict rules about what we say and what we share. And so Native parents will get notifications about what we're doing with student data, but it just allows us to give digital access to the students who we have permission to share that information about. There's a specific section about cultural expression and high school graduation ceremonies. Our current policy is already in line with this. So it's just, I think it's important to recognize that we're encouraging that kind of expression with our students. And then on, like, a lot of words here. I'm not sure which the bottom of page 6, it talks about coordinated efforts to enhance speaker programs and services. That's also where we're starting to talk about what are we doing with time and memorial. And you're right, a lot of the materials that are out there have been developed by tribes other than NOPSAT. And they really, really want their story told. And so that is in the works so that we can personalize that work. And I'm sure all of our students learn it. So I'll be communicating with the board more in the next couple weeks before August 27th around what would this joint meeting look like. I'm still waiting to hear back from Nick Lewis about what, in fact, I think his council's meeting tonight, in fact. So we'll see what they have to say. But tentatively, in the conversation that Russ and I had with them last night, we're thinking maybe 5 o'clock on the 27th to have a special meeting just for the purposes of the two groups coming together and signing this document.
Yeah, and you can work out with them where, and we went back and forth where to hold it, and probably here.
But it might be at their building too. So
Wherever the space, as long as we figure that out long enough that we can publish the meeting notice. But would 5, I'll get into the meeting session later, but just in general, 5 p.m. August 27th work.
Yeah.
And then one thing, maybe I didn't catch it here, but the portion here, the travel staff will be available to work closely with students on page 6, K. The tribe has their own education department and several employees there. So is that referring to our staff working with their staff to kind of jointly addressing student needs? Or okay, that will enhance our ability to accomplish that.
What did you say we're doing on August 27th at 5? Meeting early.
Meeting with
The tribe and MOU with the tribe.
Oh, okay.
And our plan here is this is presented tonight in draft form. The tribal council, the council should also have this in draft form. And then assuming we can meet in joint session on August 27th, we would at least be in position to approve it. And then if they wanted to also they could, but we'd be able to approve it from our side. So if you get a chance to go over this in more detail afterwards, but it's well written and very inclusive.
And this is an updated MOU from the one that's on board docs.
the one that's on board docs is policy 4050 around data sharing with tribes.
But there was an
Oh,
MOU.
WAS doesn't, so we can't, I'm taking that.
Okay, okay. Well, this version's better.
Next up is graduate profile planning.
So in that packet that I provided each of you, the next page is the graduate profile development for 26-27. This is also in our strategic plan that's been shared previously, but I just wanted to, I know some of you have shared some ideas around this, but a couple questions that I have is how many of you are interested in being part of the committee work that's going to get started? I like Russ's idea of following a similar format to the strategic plan steering committee, where it's an opportunity where larger groups can come together and give input. But just get a sense of who's interested in the work, and even if you're not interested in the work, what other ideas you have of people that I should be intentional about reaching out to.
I think I suspect there'd be as much or more community interest in this question than the strategic plan. This is really the key question of who were, the profile of the graduate, who we want our young people to turn out to be.
Seems like, I know that we have a lot of maybe informal partnerships that help funnel students into work right out of high school, work opportunities, and it might be important to reach out to those employers specifically and invite them to be a part of this process, because what are they looking for, and who they hire.
And I'm happy to help, but I'm also hoping to work on the volunteering stuff. We have a little meeting going on now, right? Yeah, divvy it up.
Yeah, I think if you did similar to what we did for the strategic plan, I would probably attend those. I don't know that I want to be like just 5 or 6 of us sitting in a little table talking about it. That's not for me. So, but and also involving students, I think that would be really important. And yeah,
It might be nice to reach out to alumni who've done really cool things.
Oh yeah, I think about that a lot because I have a couple of friends that went here and they're doing really fun stuff, and I'm always like, oh, you guys should come back and.
It could be not only an opportunity to say, here are some of our past graduates and things that they've been able to do, sort of as inspiration for our current students, but then also get their feedback on how did Baker help you get where you are, and use that to help think about that profile of a graduate.
Yeah, I asked my daughters that this week, what they would want to see in the profile of a graduate. So, I think it's a great way for us to connect with the community, because it's really, it's the community's hope for our young people is what we're trying to express. I'm wondering, on the draft definition of durable skills core competency, I also want to at least have us think about whether we can come up with some kind of wording or statement on character traits. What kind of a person and I don't know exactly how to approach that, but I think it's something we should at least think about.
Well, it fits in with the idea of perseverance, right?
Yeah, persevere, any of those things, but just at least have that as one of whether we have, we structured the strategic plan community process. We would take one bite of it each meeting, and I think that worked really well, and then divide into little tables and then report out. That was a wonderful format.
Yeah, because like the we belong, we persevere, we are prepared. What are the character traits of people who belong and people who persevere and prepared? So we have, instead of like the gamut, we just focus on those 3 instead of getting in the weeds about caring person, that kind of, we care. that
Well, we
kind of-
did have a big, long list of different things, and each one is important as far as
Yeah.
this.
Well, so along those lines, if you think about the core values, which we had academic excellence, belonging, opportunity, prepared for life, and safety. That combined with the vision of the student experience. So then what are the character traits that we would, like, how would you tell someone's from Acre?
It might be interesting too, to connect with the Mount Baker Scholarship Foundation, because they're reviewing year after year applicants of strong Baker graduates. And so they're seeing snapshots of that over and over again for many years. So they might have unique perspective to contribute.
Yeah, and they also their newsletter includes, okay, what did the graduates do? Report back, at 5 years, at 10 years. That's kind of a neat aspect of it. Yeah, I think, like if alumni is good, and there are fewer of them around, but our graduates from the 1950s, that was like the golden era of Baker.
Couple come to our girls' basketball games.
Huh?
Couple of them come to our girls' basketball games because they have a granddaughter on the team. So.
Chat them up.
Yeah. Not hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, that all of that is very helpful. So I've got some good notes here. I'll get going because it's almost fall of 2026, so we've got to get started.
And some, just to toss out some recent grads too. People that have maybe graduated in the last 3 years, right? And maybe reach out to some key graduates.
I'll lean more to the seniors because they would have been, older brothers and sisters of kids that are here right now.
Yeah. But also it's fresh in their mind. Yeah.
Sweet.
Review new agenda format for regular board meetings. It's something we talked about at the.
So the last page in that packet is a kind of a draft of what the format that we can use on the 27th. You'll note that at the top of that is just a note about the special meeting at 5 o'clock with the tribal council. I will confirm that with each of you after I hear back from the tribe. So that's tentative right now. So just a quick overview, opening items, no change to that. District information, the first item there is student recognition / community engagement. And so that would either be a building principal coming and sharing something about a student, giving that individual highlight. Maybe some meetings, it would just be that. And then other meetings is where that's the time where we would do the community engagement opportunity for a community partner group to share something about their work.
Sorry, what was the date for that?
There isn't a date yet. This is just the
Template.
template. Following that would be information from student representatives and then information from the board. After that, we'll do public comment. And then after that, and I should say that if this is what like a full agenda, if everything was on tap. So there might be times that we don't do pieces of these if they're just not, if we're not have information for them. But if we were going to do a report pertaining to the strategic plan or district operations, that would go there under assurance of organizational performance. Then is administrative. So that moves the consent agenda down, and we'd spend some time just trying to think about how to organize things in a way that fits like things together. So consent agenda, monthly finance report that Katana Jensen would do, and then my superintendent update. That would be a combination of good of the order and information that I have from the work that I'm doing. And then board action items, which would be policies or other action items. And finishing with upcoming events and board self-assessment. Executive session if needed. And then adjourn.
Okay.
Great, it looks
Yeah.
good to me.
We have information from board on the 27th, so we'd be moving that to the second meeting rather than the first. Um,
The first meeting will be the format that we're experimenting with today, where we just had this longer discussion item section where we have topics that you'll know ahead of time, and I might be presenting something, maybe it's just the conversation amongst the board.
Well, I'm excited to see the community engagement piece in there, since we're working on that.
I like it. I think it streamlines it a little bit more, so, just kind of putting it all together and then you can always change it if you don't like it.
Yes, we can.
I also noticed the addition of we belong, we persevere, we're prepared. I noticed that. I like that addition.
On the public comment.
No,
No.
at the.
Oh,
underneath
up
the
top
banner
there.
here. Yeah,
Yes, yeah,
motto.
nice.
That's a nice touch.
Marketing.
And I like having the little italics wording on the public comment. This is easy to read. Some of the ones we looked at from other districts where I just looked at them and thought, that's all ready for recycling. I don't really want to read it.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, this is
Short
still
and sweet.
visually very clean.
Yep.
Yeah, but
made it
it's,
lot.
yeah, but it's added in some of the things that we've talked about. I think it looks good.
And then we'll just have to kind of rearrange how we approach our meetings, and then with the idea that we would still have the first meeting available for business items if necessary, if they're of a timely manner, but otherwise, if it's not a timely thing, put them into the second. So next up is consent agenda, and you can motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda?
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then the Acme siding proposal, and this is a temporary repair, if you want to
Yeah.
explain that.
I apologize, Shannon Richardson, I was hoping Shannon Richardson could be here because she has a lot more detailed knowledge about this than I do, but she was not able to be here. As you know, the brick exterior of Acme is very weak in places, and there is one area in particular, I believe it's on the north side of the building, where students, when they're dropped off at the buses, the walkway is right underneath this area. And so we either had two options. One is to do some kind of repair, or the other option would be to close off that area so that students don't walk there, which really gets in the way of school operations. So with this repair, this is definitely intended to be temporary, and Shannon said they were clear, it's not gonna be pretty. But it basically puts an exterior netting on the area that they're most concerned about, so that if a brick were to fall, it would fall into that, and people below would be safe. So the quote there that you see describes what they would do, the cost, and there's also, are you able to put the picture of it up? We still have a lot of conversations ahead of us about what to do long term. And so that'll be.
And this one was about 35,000.
Yes.
So it's intended to get us by until we come up with our final plan for dealing with the.
Have any other sections been identified as being dangerous?
Right now, this is the only one.
Hopefully, we can get to the rest of the work soon enough that we wouldn't have to put any other nets up. But yeah, you can see.
So that's right outside the library, I believe.
And then right there on the left, the door that's going into like the gym
Gym, yes.
cafeteria area?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's outside the library, more or less.
Yeah, I'm trying to
That,
picture where it
that
is.
wraparound part. And then it's anchored, I think those little, I'm not sure if each one of those red lines are an anchor point, but it's anchored a couple places back into the wall. Oh yeah, it says that's the heated bar, that red one. And then it's anchored up on top of the roof too, as well as at the base.
And that would all be done before school starts.
That's the plan. And if it doesn't get done before school starts, we'll block that area off until it is done.
And timing wise, it looked like if we approve it now, it should be able to complete it before school.
Yes.
Sorry, meeting mentioned, is this paid for capital projects or?
Capital project.
Any further questions?
You said you looked into like emergency repair grants or things like that might cover it?
We didn't for this because we knew it was something that we needed to do.
We just got to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've been using a lot of emergency repair grants.
Yeah.
Next year, so.
Yeah.
So, no further questions, entertain a motion to approve the Acme siding proposal.
Motion to approve Acme siding proposal.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Fuel bid, will we look at the fuel bid?
So at our last board meeting, the board voted to reject the fuel bids for a variety of reasons. It was put back out to bid yesterday. Those bids were opened, and so there were 2 bids this time. And Gatana Jensen is recommending the board award the bid to Nelson Reisner. And because it is the lowest bid, and that's the way that works. Okay.
Any questions on that? This one will be delivery at our
It'll be
facility.
delivered to our bus garage.
Nope, I looked it up.
Huh?
I looked it up. They're a local company. They're from Anacortes.
Yeah.
And it's 2 local companies that went together, which is great. CHS, well, they've been around here for a long time. They're out of like Michigan or Minnesota or something, and they're closing all their stores here and selling everything off. And the Reisner, they donate to local charities and fundraise and stuff.
That is the lowest.
Makes me happy. So,
And the lowest.
and the lowest bidder
Perfect.
by kind of a lot.
Entertain a motion to approve the recommended fuel bid.
Motion to approve recommended fuel bid.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next up is Mount Baker Policy 3245, student use of personal mobile devices, second reading.
So there are no changes to the policy itself from what the board discussed at the last meeting. We spent most of our time talking about the procedure. And so after that, that conversation, I had met with both Principal Duran and Principal Wright yesterday, where we talked a little bit more just through that secondary procedure. The only change to the procedure, even though you're not voting on the procedure tonight, is that devices will be banned at all times except for before and after school and passing periods. So where the procedure previously said lunchtime would be an allowed time, now lunchtime will not be an allowed time, but passing periods.
That shows you the power of our 2 student reps.
Sorry, I was
In the
like.
discussion.
Gabby wanted me to ask
Oh,
about.
she had a question?
Yeah, she wanted me to ask about the policies like effect on music and headphones. That was just a general question, yes.
You will not be able to use headphones or earbuds during instruction time.
Figured.
So I think the question before us, so because most of the actual details are are in procedure. The question before us is if we are can approve the policy because it's general enough and let that some of the fine details be worked out as it's implemented in procedure. But I think if we approve the policy now, we give a little better chance to get the details of procedure in the student handbook in time to publish it. So I think it's in my mind, it's timely to approve the policy now.
I agree, because the policy is just school board saying you can't have cell phone use during instructional time. And how is instructional time defined?
It is defined, I'm gonna read it up off the board here. This is it's in the procedure, and I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me, but it's basically all time, once the bell rings. So it would include assemblies, it would include teaching assistant times, and anytime you're in class. So the lunchtime piece of it, I thought it was an interesting conversation that Principal Duran had with the principal of Nooksack Valley High School, where I think he's been very appreciative to learn from their experience because it's gone really well this past year. And our procedure mirrors theirs pretty closely. That it's an opportunity to help kids just have more interactions with each other during lunch. And he said, yeah, they've spent a lot of money on decks of cards and board games and providing kids with other things to do and other ways to interact, and that it's worked. So,
I think not during instructional time, great, and then we leave the rest of it. And do you remind me your viewpoints on the no cell phones during lunch?
You were pretty much definitely big advocates for during lunch and during passing periods.
Like to have it during those?
To have it.
Okay.
Just because we figured those are like the biggest like communication windows where nothing was really going on.
Right.
That was kind of like me and Gabby's like big standpoint from what we heard from students, was also like, if the teacher's not talking and like I'm out of class and I'm not doing anything in school related, they felt strongly that they should be able to use their phone.
Right. I mean, I know we're not voting on the procedure, but I am curious, since we're on this topic, to get some feedback other than my two students at home. So how do you think that's going to go over?
I mean, like, it's always a 50-50, you know. They're gonna get passing periods, but then they're not gonna get lunchtime. They're gonna be like, but why didn't we get lunchtime? Lunchtime's so much longer. Then it's be like, they're gonna get lunchtime. Then they're gonna be like, but why didn't we get passing periods? It's so much more convenient if my mom texts me at 10 instead of having to wait till like 1, you know? And so it's like, we're never actually really gonna win that whole thing. I know. Not really, just because obviously, you know, taking away what they really want. So, but it's like, whatever, you know, we've got to move past that. So, but I think that to a certain extent, passing periods might even be better, just because I personally, during lunch, I observe like the most minimal phone usage. Like, I feel like I think me and Gabby have kind of like said this a lot. Bigger kids are really good at socializing. They like talking to each other. They bring a bunch of like random stuff to school and then they'll play games. Like, you know, it's just kind of like their thing. They'll just talk and they'll play games and whatever, and they're good at that. And so I think that, you know, taking away during lunchtime, ultimately, in the end, it really isn't that big of a deal, because, you know, there's so many more passing periods in the day than there are lunch times. And so like that quick last minute text that you got to send to your mom, boom, you can do it right there. You might be like this walking into class, but guess what? You'll probably get there in time and you'll be able to communicate effectively. And I know that definitely also kind of eliminates a little bit of worry that I heard from some teachers, especially ag teachers, about like, oh, you know, if there's something like happening in the barn or whatever, you know, got to get over there, then that's definitely a more effective way without having to worry that students aren't going to see the message until it's too late. So then hopefully they will be able to get it at like a good time.
There's more opportunity to check if you get passing through,
Events instead of
then
lunch.
only lunch.
And also I feel like just, it'll probably be more effective.
So what are the chances your mom's gonna have to come pick up your cell phone? at some point?
Oh, who knows? I was so representative. I have to lead by example.
There you go.
She will be on do not disturb and thrown into my bag.
So are the students gonna be aware that it was you and Gabby?
Oh, no, they definitely know. We put out like an entire video
We'll
of the
put it in the
announcements.
district newsletter. Thanks to.
No, you can say you advocated for both.
I will say I was fighting for your lunchtime. I was fighting for your passing periods.
And you got one of
Exactly. I was able to get you passing periods. Cut me some slack on lunch, please.
So any other questions on this one? Is that?
No.
If not, I would entertain a motion to approve Baker policy 3245 for second and final reading.
Motion to approve Mount Baker policy 3245, second and final reading.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then our last board action item is Mount Baker policy 4050, data sharing with local tribes. In its first reading.
Yeah, this is a brand new policy for us, so that it's not a revision of any kind. And it is, I think, a good example of the board being able to create new policy that supports the work that you're also going to be doing with the tribal consultation. So this does come from WASDA model policy. So a lot of other districts that work with tribes have a similar policy. It paves the way for that data sharing that we've talked about so that we'll be able to give the appropriate access as needed to help them track their students.
I didn't see any need to hold this over for another meeting. I felt like it would be appropriate for first and final reading if that's.
I had a couple comments. Just as a general principle, I normally wouldn't support sharing student data without parental consent, but as I understand it, we already share student data without consent to the federal and state government. So in my mind, it makes sense that we would extend that to the Nooksack tribe as a government entity. One thing in here that was a little ambiguous to me is it just says local tribes. And as we learned yesterday, there's 29 tribes in Washington state. So I just want to make sure that the board is involved in approving like specifically the tribe. And I know we're kind of doing that on the F version of this, but I wouldn't want this to be ambiguous to the point where, you know, administrator could share student records with another tribe without getting board.
And what this is it's authorizing the district to enter into an agreement that specifies exactly what we're sharing and how we're sharing it. And that's what's within the MOU. So the Nooksack tribe will be the only tribe that we have.
Yeah, it would allow us to enter an agreement with the Lummi tribe, but we probably won't.
No, at this point, that's not.
But it would, the wording would, and because you have that extra step of actually entering into the agreement, you don't have to specify federally recognized tribes within this geographic area. Right. Because we control which tribes we enter in with through that second step.
And the MOU also specifies that when we're giving individual student information, there is still parent consent that is required.
Okay.
So the, we might give the tribe access to like general information without personally identified information about a student.
Okay.
But if it is going to be individual, parent rights still come first.
Okay. Great.
Yep.
That's all in the procedure.
It's in the memorandum of
This
understanding.
is the newest draft.
Oh, gotcha.
Any other questions? If not, I recommend approval of Mount Baker Policy 4050, data sharing. For first and final reading.
Motion to approve Mount Baker Policy 4050, first and final reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So upcoming events and board self-assessment. So that's.
So I'm gonna just be really honest. I know we had talked about starting the board self-assessment this meeting, and I said I was gonna develop that, and I have not yet done that, so.
Well, I probably could have helped you and I forgot. So I emailed myself, I'll work on it for them.
I have a comment that's related to board self-assessment. I've been looking at the criteria for boards of distinction. And the deadline for submitting is at the beginning of September each year. And it seemed to me that as we start this process of doing board self-assessment, that that's a great way to start collecting data that we could use to put together that application every fall. And I was looking through that rubric and the application process, and it's not as intimidating or as formal as it sounds. It can be as simple as reporting on, hey, this is something that we worked on this year that's in alignment with the things that you are looking for boards to do. And everybody who meets the criteria can get that designation. So I think that that might be a nice way of making our self-assessments accountable to an external layer. And something that we could look forward doing in the future.
Yeah, I
If
think,
you guys are open to that.
I think since, we've completed I think a very excellent strategic plan process. I think we do have enough that we really, it would be timely to apply there. It's been probably at least 10 years since we've done that, or 8 or 10 years, Board of Distinction. For a number of years, I was judge for the WASDA's Board of Distinction. But I think they found I was a little too hard on. I'm always like that. If you can be distinctive.
That might be why they don't let me do extemporaneous speaking anymore. I was having so much fun, but felt like I was always pretty hard on them.
Yeah, I think that's. Do you recall the active deadline in September?
Might be September 8th, but I have to double check. And I looked to see, we've done enough. I think we could submit an application for this year. We don't have to. I mean, it's a pretty fast turnaround. And as I'm looking at, hey, we're going to have this self-assessment built in, and we've started doing more, an annual bigger self-assessment process, but just that moment of reflection to be able to connect what we're doing to those WASDA goals can help us build that application throughout the year. And I think it's a cool thing to aim for. We've done some really great stuff as a board during really challenging times. And so it's an opportunity to highlight that work, but also to keep ourselves constantly reflecting on how we want to grow and what we're doing.
I didn't look to see where that's located. Could you email that? And,
Send it to you and then
send
you
it to
can.
me, and we can pass it around and we can readdress it, have that as one of the items on our August 27th meeting, and then if we want to go ahead and figure out how we'll finish writing it up.
Would you like, do we want to try to submit it this year?
Might as well.
Yeah, I think there's enough time.
So. But then we have to go to the president's dinner. Fancy dinner. Award.
Anything else on the self-assessment?
Better.
Or-
Can I add, just kind of generally, how did you feel about the format tonight?
I liked it.
Liked it.
I did too.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it was more time to discuss rather than like cramming discussion into a bunch of different stuff with all these things. And we're still, our timing is great. We're so far under 2 hours, so
Mhm.
it's
I
fantastic.
feel like we covered a lot, we covered a lot of ground
Yeah.
without running aground.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I liked it.
So then, things to keep in mind here, in addition to a tentative 5 p.m. start for our August 2023, and then also watch to make sure that where we're gonna hold the meeting. We're still figuring that out. And then the August 24th, all staff welcome by 8 a.m. in the Mount Baker High School auditorium, so encourage everyone who can to attend.
Might
that.
not be able to make,
What's that?
I might not be able to make that, yeah. I'm gonna be backpacking all week next week, and that will be my first day back. Pretty sure. I'm
You don't
gonna-
want to be at the big day.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and then other than our other meetings coming up, we have an executive session and still 60 minutes, you think?
At the most.
At what?
At the most.
At the most, okay. Board will recess in an executive session for approximately 60 minutes to discuss performance of public employee and discuss collective bargaining negotiations. No action will be taken following the executive session. So we'll stop to Brian first, and then anyone who wants peaches.
Oh, I want.
I brought some bags there.